Caleb Stone rode into Dry Creek with nothing but a tired horse, a handful of coins, and a name that made decent people step off the sidewalk. For 5 years, he had been running from a lie. 5 years since the day they called him a murderer. 5 years since he buried his badge in the dirt and walked away from the only life he had known. All he wanted now was grain. Just grain. His cattle were thin. Winter was coming fast across Montana Territory, 1882. If he did not feed them, he would lose everything again. The town was small. 15 buildings, one church with a crooked steeple, a saloon, a general store, and a handful of homes pressed close together like they were afraid of the wide-open land around them. People noticed him the moment he rode in. A woman hanging laundry froze with a white sheet in her hands. 2 old men sitting outside the mercantile went quiet. A little boy pointed at Caleb before his mother pulled his hand down and turned him away. Caleb kept his eyes forward. He was used to that look, the look that said, "Trouble has arrived." He tied his horse outside a wooden building with a sign that read Hendrick's Grain and Supply. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. A bell rang softly above him. The store smelled like flour and corn and something sweeter beneath it. She was standing behind the counter. Her hair was auburn, pulled back, but not neat enough to hide the loose strands around her face. Freckles dusted her nose. Ink stains marked her fingers as she wrote in a ledger, but it was her eyes that stopped him. Amber brown, deep, watchful. She looked up at him. She did not flinch. She did not step back. She simply studied him like she was measuring something. "Grain or bran?" she asked calmly. Her voice held no fear. Caleb almost forgot what he came for. "Both," he said. 500 pounds of grain, 200 of bran. Delivered. She nodded and wrote it down without hesitation. "That's a large order. Ranch nearby. 10 miles east. Old Morrison Place." Something flickered in her eyes. "You're the new owner." "I am." She quoted him a fair price. No cheating. No extra charge for a stranger. That surprised him. He counted his coins carefully onto the counter. Before she could finish writing the receipt, a door creaked open behind her. An older man stepped out, leaning on a cane. His face was thin, pale, worn by years and sickness, but his eyes were sharp. Lawman eyes. The man looked at Caleb for a long moment. "Not Caleb Stone," he said quietly. Caleb's jaw tightened. "Marshall Hendricks." The old man nodded slowly. "A man's got a right to start over," he said. "Even one the world decided to bury." Caleb did not answer. He finished paying and turned back to the woman. "Tomorrow for delivery," she said. As he reached the door, she added softly, "Avoid the canyon road after dark. Wolves been seen." The way she said wolves told him she meant men. He tipped his hat and stepped back into the afternoon sun. But he took the canyon road anyway. Caleb Stone did not scare easy. That night, he lay awake in his small ranch house, staring at the ceiling. He kept seeing her eyes, calm, strong, like she understood something about him. He had not felt understood in 5 years. The next morning, the rifle shot came out of nowhere. Just the crack split the air while he was fixing a fence near his north pasture. He dropped to the ground before his mind caught up. A second bullet kicked dirt inches from his arm. He rolled behind a fence post and scanned the tree line. There, a glint of metal. He fired back. Once, twice, not to kill, just to warn. The shooter vanished. Caleb waited 10 long minutes before moving. By noon, he found one of his cattle lying dead near the creek. A knife pinned a note to the animal's hide. Asterisk, this land ain't for killers. Leave or die. Asterisk Caleb stared at the words until anger burned through him. He tore the note free and rode straight back to town. The saloon was loud when he walked in, but quieted fast. Deputy Marcus Cole stood near the bar. Cole was tall and thick through the shoulders, set with eyes too close together and a smile that never reached them. "Well," Cole drawled loudly, "if it ain't the killer himself." Caleb kept his voice calm. "Just here for a drink. Trouble follows you," Cole said. "Maybe you should move along before it spreads." "I bought land," Caleb answered. "That ain't against the law." Cole leaned closer. "You shot your partner 5 years back. That's against plenty of laws." "I was cleared." "Cleared ain't the same as innocent." The whole room watched. Caleb did not reach for his gun. Not this time. He finished his drink and left. But he did not go home. He went back to the grain store. The red-haired woman was loading sacks onto a wagon. When she saw his face, her hands stilled. "Something happened," she said. He handed her the note. She read it once, and her eyes did not show surprise. They showed recognition. "Come inside," she said quietly. Marshall Hendricks listened to Caleb's story without interrupting. When Caleb finished, the old man closed his eyes for a moment. "Silas Dalton," he said. The name hit like a punch. Caleb knew that name. Dalton was the man who had twisted everything 5 years ago. The one who turned Caleb's partner against him. The one who made sure the blame landed square on Caleb's shoulders. "He's buying up land," Hendricks said, "burning out ranchers who won't sell." "And me?" Caleb asked. "You're a loose end." The room fell silent. Then the woman spoke. "My name isn't Clara Hendricks," she said. Caleb turned to her. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. 10 years ago, my family owned a ranch near Wilson Creek. The Daltons wanted it. When my father refused to sell, they burned our home, killed my parents." Caleb felt the air leave his lungs. "I hid under the grain shed floor," she continued. "I saw the man who gave the order." "Dalton," Caleb said. She nodded. "My real name is Emma Bennett." The old marshal looked at Caleb. "She can clear your name," he said. "She saw your partner with Dalton before the fire." For 5 years, Caleb had lived under the weight of a lie. Now the truth stood in front of him, alive, breathing. "I didn't know," Clara said softly. "I didn't know you were caught in it, too." He looked at her. Two people tied to the same monster. Before they could say more, Hendricks began coughing hard. Blood stained his handkerchief. Clara rushed to him. "I don't have much time," the old marshal admitted when the fit passed. "But I've been gathering evidence for years. Enough to hang Dalton if we move fast." He pulled an envelope from his coat. "This is everything." Caleb stared at it. "Freedom, justice, danger." All this time, he whispered. Clara met his eyes. "We don't run anymore," she said. He nodded. For once, he answered, "We fight." 3 days later, smoke rose from Caleb's ranch. His barn was burning when he reached it. Another note nailed to his cabin door. Asterisk last chance. Asterisk that night, Clara made a choice. She packed supplies, loaded the evidence onto the wagon floor. She and her younger sister, Rusty, moved to Caleb's ranch. "If we stand," Clara said, "we stand together." The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Caleb and Clara worked side by side. They spoke of plans, of trials, of taking the evidence to Helena. But beneath it all was something else growing. Trust. One evening on the porch under a sky full of stars, Clara leaned close. "I'm tired of being afraid," she whispered. "You don't have to be," he said. She looked at him like he was something more than a broken man. And for the first time in years, he felt like maybe he was. But peace does not last long when evil is watching. On the 5th morning, Rusty's bed was empty. They searched the ranch. Nothing. Then they found the note near the water pump. Astor's sister, "I saw men watching the ranch. I thought if I went to town, they'd follow me and leave you safe." Astor's Clara's face went pale. "She went alone," she said. Caleb's chest tightened. They rode hard for Dry Creek. The town was silent when they arrived. Too silent. Inside the church, Jacob Walker stood with a handful of frightened townsfolk. "They have your sister," Walker said. "Who?" Clara demanded. "Silas Dalton," he answered. He rode in at dawn with 20 men. Caleb felt the world shift. Dalton was not waiting anymore. He was here, and he had taken Rusty. The fight they had been preparing for was no longer coming. It had arrived. The walk from the church to the saloon felt longer than any trail Caleb had ever ridden. Clara walked beside him, her back straight and her face pale but steady. The wind carried dust down the empty street. Doors were closed, windows dark. The whole town was hiding. Inside the saloon, Deputy Marcus Cole sat at a table near the bar, boots stretched out, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He did not look surprised to see them. "Well now," Cole said slowly. "The famous couple. Where is Rusty?" Clara asked. Her voice did not shake. Cole smiled. "Safe for now." Caleb stepped forward. "Take us to Dalton." Cole leaned back in his chair. "That depends. You bring what he wants." Clara did not hesitate. I'm what he wants. Caleb turned sharply. Clara. She touched his arm. It's always been me, she said softly. I saw his face that night. He knows it. Cole stood. Boss said bring the woman alone. That's not happening, Caleb said. Cole's hand drifted toward his gun. Then your sister dies before sunset. The air between them went tight as wire. Clara closed her eyes for a brief second. When she opened them, they were calm. I'll go, she said. Caleb grabbed her shoulders. He'll kill you. Maybe, she answered. But if I don't go, he kills Rusty for sure. Cole nodded toward the door. Horse is ready. Clara looked at Caleb. In her eyes, he saw fear and trust. I love you, she whispered. He wanted to hold her, to pull her back, to lock her away somewhere safe. But Clara was not a woman who hid. I'm coming, he said. Cole shook his head. Boss sat alone. Caleb stepped closer until he was inches from Cole's face. Tell your boss he gets both of us, or he gets none. Cole hesitated. Dalton wanted Clara, but he wanted Caleb, too. Fine, qu'il m'attend. But no tricks. They rode out a dry creek under a gray sky. Dalton's men waited near Wilson Creek, just beyond a ridge. 20 riders, armed and watching. At their center sat Silas Dalton. He looked thinner than the stories described, older, but his eyes were still cold as winter stone. Clara dismounted first. So, Dalton said smoothly, Emma Bennett, still breathing. My name is Clara, she replied. Dalton smiled faintly. You always were stubborn, just like your father. Rusty was tied to a tree behind the group, frightened, but alive. Caleb saw her and felt his jaw tighten. Let her go, Clara said. Dalton tilted his head. And why would I? You have me. Dalton studied her. And you brought the cowboy. Caleb met his gaze without blinking. You framed me, Caleb said. 5 years of my life. Dalton shrugged. Business. You killed her family. Also business. The casual tone made something dark rise in Caleb's chest. Dalton raised a hand. 2 of his men dragged Rusty forward. She walks free, Dalton said, when the girl hands over the evidence. Clara did not look at Caleb. The evidence is safe, she said. You'll never find it. Dalton's smile faded. Then you die. He drew his pistol and pointed it at Rusty's head. Clara moved before Caleb could stop her. Wait, she shouted. Dalton paused. You want the truth buried? She asked. Then you don't kill me here. You kill me in front of a judge. Dalton's eyes narrowed. You testify, she continued, and the whole territory watches you hang. You kill me now, and you prove you're scared. Silence stretched. Dalton did not like being called scared. Caleb saw the shift. Dalton thrived on control, on fear, on being untouchable. Clara had just struck at his pride. You think you're clever, Dalton said quietly. I think you're a coward who hides behind hired guns. A ripple passed through the men. Dalton's jaw tightened. Untie the sister, he ordered suddenly. Rusty stumbled free and ran to Clara. Dalton dismounted slowly. You want to fight me in court? He said. Fine. Bring your evidence. Bring your witnesses. I'll be waiting. Caleb did not trust it. Why let us go? He demanded. Dalton looked at him. Because killing you now is simple. Ruining you publicly is better. He mounted his horse again. 3 days, he said. Helena, territorial court. If you don't show, I will come back and finish what I started. Then he rode away with his men, dust rising behind them. Clara stood, shaking only after they were gone. Caleb caught her before she fell. He's playing a game, he said. I know, she whispered. But now it's on our terms. They rode back to Dry Creek with Rusty between them. The town watched from behind curtains. Word spread fast. Dalton had agreed to face trial. The next 2 days were a blur. Marshal Hendricks gathered every document he had collected over 20 years. Bribes, land deeds, witness statements, bank records. Clara packed them carefully. Caleb organized riders to escort them to Helena. Walker volunteered first. I'm tired of hiding, he said. By sunrise on the 3rd day, 12 men rode out together. The journey was tense, but quiet. No ambus, no gunfire. Dalton wanted the courtroom. Helena was larger than Dry Creek. Busy streets, brick buildings, real law. The territorial marshal, Thomas Avery, met them personally. "You're either brave," he said, "or foolish." "Maybe both," Caleb answered. The trial began the next morning. The courtroom filled quickly. Ranchers from across the territory came. Families who had lost land, men who had lost brothers. Dalton entered in chains, but held his head high. He smiled at Clara like this was a social visit. Witness after witness took the stand. Bribed deputies, burned ranchers, men who had been threatened into silence. Then Clara stepped forward. She stood straight, hands folded, voice clear. "My name is Emma Bennett," she began. She told the story calmly. The fire, her mother's scream, Dalton's face lit by flames. The room was silent when she finished. Caleb watched the jury, watched their eyes. They believed her. Dalton's lawyer tried to break her. "You were 16, he said. Traumatized, confused. "I was scared," Clara answered. "Not blind." The jury deliberated less than an hour. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was death by hanging. Dalton did not react. He simply looked at Caleb. "This isn't over," he said quietly as they led him away. Caleb felt something loosen in his chest. 5 years of anger, 5 years of shame, cleared. His name restored. Outside the courthouse, Clara found him standing alone. "It's done," she said. He nodded. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For believing me." She smiled. "For standing beside me." They returned to Dry Creek as different people. Not hunted, not hiding. Free. Life began to feel possible again. The barn was rebuilt. The cattle grew strong. Clara reopened the store. Rusty laughed more often. One cold December evening, Caleb realized something had changed inside him. He no longer rode into town like a stranger. He rode in like he belonged. That night, under falling snow, he asked Clara to marry him. She said yes, without hesitation. But peace in the West rarely lasts long. 3 weeks after Dalton was taken to prison, a letter arrived. Clara opened it at the kitchen table, her face drained of color. "Caleb," she whispered. He took the paper. Silas Dalton had escaped custody, bribed a guard, vanished into the night. Caleb looked toward the mountains. He did not need to guess where Dalton was heading. "He's coming," he said. Clara met his eyes. This time she did not look afraid. "Then we finish it," she said. And somewhere beyond the hills, a man who had lost everything once before was riding toward them with nothing left to lose. The wind felt different after the letter came. Heavier, like the land itself knew something was coming. Caleb stood on the porch of the ranch house, the paper still in his hand. Dalton had escaped, a guard bribed, a door left open. By the time anyone noticed, he was gone. Clara stepped beside him. "He's coming here," she said quietly. Caleb nodded. Dalton did not run from fights. He finished them, and Clara was the last loose end. They had 2 days before word spread across the territory. 2 days before Dalton could reach Dry Creek. They did not waste a single hour. Walker came with every man he trusted. Windows were reinforced with thick planks. Barrels were filled with water in case of fire. Firing positions were set behind the barn and along the fence line. Caleb moved through it all with calm focus. He had been a lawman once. He knew how desperate men thought. Clara refused to hide. She practiced shooting beside the men, her aim steady, her jaw set. Rusty stayed close to the house, but helped where she could. That night, Clara sat beside Caleb on the porch. "Tell me the truth," she said softly. "Are we going to survive this?" He looked at her. Yes. It was not a promise he could control, but it was one he meant with everything in him. At dawn on the 3rd day, they saw dust rising from the south. Riders, too many to count at first. Then they came into view, 30 men. At their head rode Silas Dalton. He looked thinner than before, harder, like prison had carved the last pieces of mercy out of him. He raised a hand as his men spread out across the pasture. "Son," he called. Caleb stepped forward into the yard, rifle in hand. "This ends today," Dalton said. "It already did," Caleb answered. Dalton laughed. "You think a courtroom beat me? I built this territory in blood. I don't fall that easy." His eyes shifted to the house. "Send the girl out. No one else has to die." Clara stepped onto the porch beside Caleb. "I'm not a girl," she said. "And I'm not running." Dalton's face hardened. "Then everyone burns." He dropped his hand. Gunfire exploded. The first wave came fast. Dalton's men charged hard, firing from horseback. Caleb and Walker's men returned fire from cover. Horses screamed. Wood splintered. Smoke filled the air. Caleb fired steadily. Each shot careful, controlled. Years of training guiding him. A rider fell near the fence. Another dropped beside the well, but Dalton had numbers. 2 men made it to the barn and tried to set it ablaze. Rusty fired from an upstairs window, hitting one square in the leg. Clara reloaded calmly beside her. Caleb saw Dalton circling wide toward the side of the house. He broke from cover and ran. Bullets kicked up dirt around him. He dove behind the woodpile as Dalton dismounted near the porch. Dalton moved with grim purpose, pistol drawn. He reached the steps just as Caleb rose. They met face to face. For a second, everything else faded. Just the two of them. "You should have stayed, Barry," Dalton said. "You should have stayed in prison," Caleb replied. Dalton fired first. The bullet grazed Caleb's shoulder, spinning him back. Pain flared white-hot. Caleb fired in return. Dalton staggered but did not fall. They closed the distance. No more time for rifles. They crashed into each other, rolling across the yard, fists striking, boots digging into frozen ground. Dalton was older, but fueled by rage. He slammed Caleb against the fence post. "You ruined me," Dalton snarled. "You ruined yourself." Dalton reached for his fallen pistol. Caleb saw it. So did Clara. From the porch, she fired, but the shot struck Dalton inside. He gasped, stunned. Caleb seized the moment. He grabbed the pistol and pressed it against Dalton's chest. "Don't," Clara called softly. Caleb looked up at her. She shook her head. "Not out of mercy, out of strength." "We're not like him," she said. Dalton laughed weakly. "You think sparing me makes you better?" "No, Caleb answered. Letting the law finish it does." He struck Dalton across the jaw with the pistol grip, knocking him unconscious. Around them, the fight was ending. Without their leader, Dalton's men broke. Some fled, some surrendered. Walker limped forward, blood on his sleeve, but grinning. "Looks like we win." Caleb tied Dalton's hands himself. This time, there would be no escape. By sunset, the territorial marshal arrived with reinforcements. Dalton was taken away in chains once more. He did not look back. The yard was quiet. Smoke drifted from scorched wood. 3 of Walker's men were wounded, but alive. No one from the ranch had died. Clara walked down the porch steps slowly. Caleb met her halfway. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she placed her hand over his wounded shoulder. "You're bleeding." "So are you," he said, brushing dirt from her cheek. She laughed softly. The sound felt like sunlight after a storm. "It's over," she whispered. This time, Caleb believed it. Weeks passed. Dalton's second trial was swift and final. No brives, no mistakes. The sentence was carried out at the territorial prison under heavy guard. Silas Dalton's name became a warning story instead of a threat. Back at the ranch, life slowly returned. The barn was repaired, the fences reset. The cattle grazed peacefully once more. Clara moved into the ranch house fully. Rusty returned to Helena with her husband, but visited often. On Christmas Eve, beneath falling snow, Caleb and Clara were married in the small church at Dry Creek. Simple vows, warm candles, Walker standing proudly beside Caleb. When Caleb kissed his wife, he understood something he had not before. He had not ridden into town for justice. He had ridden into town for survival. But what he found was something greater, a home. Spring brought new grass. Summer brought calves. And in early autumn, Clara placed Caleb's hand against her belly. "There's a heartbeat," she said softly. He stood still, listening, feeling a future. Months later, their son was born. Small, loud, perfect. Caleb held him carefully. It felt like something fragile and holy. He thought about the man he had been 5 years ago, angry, alone, running, and he looked at the life in his arms. "Thomas," Clara whispered. "After my father," Caleb nodded. The ranch grew. The house expanded. 3 years passed. One evening, as the sun set over Montana, little Thomas ran across the yard toward him. "Tell me the story again," the boy said. "The one about the cowboy." "Yes." Caleb lifted him onto his shoulders. "Once there was a cowboy who rode into town to buy grain," he began. What did he find? Thomas asked. Caleb looked toward the porch. Clara stood there smiling, their second child resting on her hip. He found a woman with red hair and brave eyes, Caleb said softly. And she changed everything. Thomas grinned. Did they win? They did. And then, Caleb held his son closer. They built a life, a family, and they never ran again. The mountains stood quiet against the fading light. The land stretched wide and peaceful. Caleb Stone had come to Dry Creek with nothing but a horse and a broken name. He left the past behind with a wife who saw his scars and stayed anyway. Home was not the ranch. It was not the land. Home was the woman waiting on the porch and the children running across the yard, and the life they had chosen to build together forever.